TCU, Michigan. The Wolverines are a 7.5-point favorite. When last we saw them, they were in Columbus, torching Ohio State in the fourth quarter. J.J. McCarthy had his breakout game. He'd never been asked to really carry the offense. He needed to do it for the first 3.5 quarters the first 2.5 quarters of this game, and he absolutely did. I have a hard time picking TCU in this game, even though I love TCU and they have won every way you can win. And I know that Michigan is going to focus on Quentin Johnson. I think they're going to be able to get him the ball anyway, but I just think Michigan will wear them down, similar to the way that Kansas State did in the Big 12 title game, where they just kept running at it.
My computer is got like 8% battery left, so I don't know if it's like freaking out.
Don't worry, we're in the playoff.
Yeah, don't worry, Ari. We're just gonna
cut.
You're just gonna cut out before making
I've been
picks.
waiting 50 minutes to get to this, and now my computer's gonna die. I think that Michigan's going to win. I don't think they're going to cover the spread. I think that TCU is a very disciplined football team with explosive playmakers that has won, like Andy said, in multiple ways this year from behind, exciting, not exciting. And they're too resilient of a team to just get their doors blown off with a month to prepare for a team that I think they match up with athletically
I feel like
pretty
that's
well.
the least likely outcome. Like if Michigan beats them, I feel like it'd be close for a half or so, and then Michigan just ultimately wears them down. That feels like the more logical path for a Michigan win. What is the logical path for a TCU win? How does that work?
Okay, so I'm with you guys. I mean, I think Michigan's going to win this game. Not sure if they're going to cover, but here is the stat that I have been clinging to and thinking about all week long, okay? According to Sports Info Solutions, the Wolverines have seen opposing quarterbacks run just 39 times this season, excluding sacks and kneels, the least amount in the nation. So to me, that just says that they have not really faced anyone like what Max Duggan can do for them in designed runs and also scrambles. And that would make me nervous because we haven't really, we saw Michigan and their pass rush and the defensive front and all these things after replacing Aiden Hutchinson and David Ojabo, but they were mostly going against quarterbacks that weren't even really moving around.
They were going as CJ Stroud, not Justin Fields.
Yeah, and even Talia Tagovailoa didn't really run against Michigan. So that would be the concerning part, and I do think that maybe people are overlooking TCU in terms of talent, defensively, all the different things. So, I think it's some of that, but it's also them doing all the things that they've done, which is just they don't die in these games. They come back in the second quarter. Max Duggan puts the team on his back. It's all of those intangibles as well.
Well, the thing too with TCU is that you also have to leave the opportunity open for the back door. And Michigan could be wearing them down, and then they might be up by 14 or whatever,
right,
with 6 minutes left in a game that they ran away with, and then TCU, who never has given up all year, scores a touchdown with 2.5 minutes left to hook you. I think too, the reason why we've seen so many blowouts in these semifinal games is because it's always been a team like Alabama versus Washington. And though Michigan does have a stark talent advantage in this game, you don't have a superpower with a blue chip ratio of 99.7% going against a team that got in because they won their conference. So I think that the blowout thing is kind of off the radar for me.
Also, a couple other things. We've seen Michigan settle for a lot of field goals this season. Mm-hmm. That's been a concern. They're still without Blake Corum. Obviously, they've won their biggest games of the season without him, but that is a factor. And even when J.J. McCarthy has had these big passing plays like he did against Ohio State, overall stat line wasn't as impressive as you think or it felt watching the game. He still only completed 50% of his passes in that game.
No, yeah, he hit a couple big ones in a row, and it felt like a lot more.
And the big ones he was throwing to were people who were running around wide open. I mean, it's not like the guy was out there looking like Peyton Manning. So
I think there's ways to talk yourself into TCU keeping this close or possibly, this coming down to a final possession. I do think Michigan is the better team. I do think that both these teams have been second half teams in totally different ways, and Michigan has absolutely worn its opponents down and then just kind of ran the ball, throttled it. That offensive line takes a lot of pride in that. All of that I believe in, and so I do think they're going to win. You guys are in me kind of playing devil's advocate is kind of talking myself into TCU covering, though. So I think that's where I am on this.
Two possessions is a lot. I think 2 possessions is a lot in a game that isn't Georgia versus Pac-12 champion.
That makes sense. Let us move to the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. We know what Chick-fil-A does. They make delicious waffle fries.
Nuggets are prime, too.
The Nuggets are outstanding. I once ate 61 during a show.
I don't know how long it takes for them to figure out that a spicy nugget would be good. I'm not sure why that's taken so long, but we'll let them think about that on Sunday.
You were living in Columbus when they test marketed the sweet potato waffle fries. How were those?
Oh, I never ate that. No, I've never had it. I know Columbus was a test market, but I never ate any of that stuff. I don't know why. I never got around to it.
It's going to be so funny when Ari's computer just dies and
I'm just like so excited.
This game is
in this game. I
Chick-fil-A.
Can I go first, please?
Yeah,
yes,
go ahead.
Go.
I think that if you pick Ohio State in this game, you are insane. Like, I have no idea how anybody on the face of the earth could sit here and look at you straight in the eyes and come up with a real rational reason why they think you could win. I think you can make a rational case that they could keep it close for 3 quarters. But what has Ohio State done in any walk of this season that gives you the confidence that they could put it together? Like, there's nothing there that would make you think that they should be able to do this. So I do think it's interesting that the spread has stayed at 6.5. And if Ohio State somehow wins this football game, then we can all react to how crazy that is after. But if you pick them to win beforehand, and I'm saying it to you two, I would love to hear what you have to say is the reason for that, because I can't come up with one thing.
Nicole, do you mind if I play devil's advocate here?
All yours.
But you don't believe it. You're playing devil's advocate, but you don't believe it.
Well, here's the devil's advocate take on this. So Ohio State has played 1.5 terrible quarters. Basically, that last Michigan drive of the third quarter on, Ohio State was horrendous.
They gave up,
They're actually okay most of that game. They're doing fine for 2.5 quarters in that game. They're not challenged through most of their schedule. Like, they hadn't really had their, as the Georgia players were talking about, having their composure tested. That was the way they were excusing away almost losing to Missouri. But they have not truly been tested until that Michigan game. They got punched in the mouth. They did not respond well. They had a lot of time to come back and practice and have physical practices, which Ryan Day said they did have more physical practices. Now, do I believe they were more physical than what Michigan and Georgia were doing at the same time? No, I don't. But let's say they did more physical practices. They hit more, inside run drill more, tackled more, and they are now a more fundamentally sound team that happens to have a ton of great talent. Georgia and Ohio State, probably the most similar teams in terms of what they brought in recruiting and where they're projected to go in the draft. Alabama's the only other one in that discussion right now. So potentially they learned something from that game. I
haven't seen Ohio State put together their talent in 2 years.
I got you. I hear you.
I'm with Ari on this, in just thinking, like, we know the top end, and
if they put it all together, they can play with Georgia.
Yes, my thing is they haven't given us any single reason whatsoever to consider they're going to put it all together.
Oh, I'm taking Georgia to cover in this game.
Yes, I think Georgia's going to cover by a lot.
Well, Georgia has been one of the teams that has blown out teams in the college football.
This might be 7-7 or something at the end of the first quarter, but Georgia is Michigan, like, on the times table. Like, how many times better?
Yeah.
I think I also wonder, and again, maybe this goes
it's in Atlanta.
Ways. Yes, it is in Atlanta.
And I don't think many Ohio State fans, and as we're recording this, I'm in Atlanta. It's a little early. We haven't seen a bunch of people yet. I'm guessing a ton of Ohio State fans are not coming for this game.
Well, they didn't think they were going to be in it.
Right.
And then you get the number one.
If you're an Ohio State fan, why would you spend money to go to this
You're
one?
just going to wait and see if they win and go to LA if they do.
Yes.
Well, you can drive to Columbus to Atlanta, so maybe that helps. But
yeah, I just think I'm super curious as well about the idea of being embarrassed, losing a game where you needed to be tougher, you need to be more physical, et cetera, et cetera. You lose that game. You think you have 365 days until you can kind of show that that's not who you are. Now it's actually 1 month as you're going up against Georgia, whose strengths are the same as Michigan, if not better. So,
and they had an entire year to prepare for Michigan with that same chip on their shoulder, and they didn't even have an offensive wrinkle that makes you wonder, they
weren't actual underdogs in that game. They are here, and we talked to some of the Ohio State players here about that, and they all kind of differ in how they feel about it. Some are like, I've been an underdog my whole life, and I'm like, not since you put on scarlet and gray, dude.
Nope.
But you are now.
What about flip the side? Are we still concerned about the defense? And we're talking about some of the big plays JJ McCarthy had. He had not thrown.
How could you not be concerned about their defense?
Yeah, I know. So I'm just saying there's concerns, not just that the offense hasn't.
Yeah, the whole team.
I agree.
I'm shocked that the spread has stayed under 1 score.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it's not like there's been a ton pouring in on either side. It seems like, for numbers I saw, people.
What did it open at? Wasn't it? It was about this.
I think it was like 4.5 or 5.5, and then it moved to 6.5.
Yeah,
but it hasn't moved much.
It hasn't moved either direction.
The line
since.
in the other game moved down, right? I think
that's it. It was 9 to 7.5.
Yeah. So I think Georgia's better. I think Georgia's more prepared for this moment. I think they're the more physical team,
the better coach team,
And look, if Ohio State does get blown out, which I don't think they will, but if they do, this is going to be a miserable offseason for Ryan Day.
Yeah.
Like, I know I have a column in The Athletic that came out Thursday where I basically, this is a massive opportunity for Ryan Day, or it could be the game he regrets for his entire life, because they're already having an existential crisis based on what happened in the last 2 Michigan games.
Well, there are only a couple of different games that actually matter, right? In the way that Ohio State's
and Ohio State should never feel just happy to be anywhere. Like, they are supposed to beat
these are
Georgia.
the games, and I know people would be like, well, look at his overall record or whatever. Or when Ari wrote about how uncomfortable it was having lost to Michigan twice for Ryan Day, but winning against basically everybody else. That's the standard at Ohio State. It is beating Michigan. It is winning in the
beating
CFP.
Michigan State and beating Rutgers and beating Maryland does not release dopamine.
No,
exactly.
There are a lot of wins in there, but I think Ryan Day is 2 and 3 in his 5 biggest games.
And you can't pull the Georgia's on a different level. No. You're Ohio State.
You're supposed to be at that
the
level.
highest level.
Yeah, and that's the problem. And the half glass full people will be upset about it. But the issue is you're going to be judged against the team that you're like. The thing is you lost to a team that you're supposed to be ahead of, already.
And now you're playing a team that actually has more talent
supposed to be your peer, and then you're not your peer. Then you are now looking in the mirror, wondering what is this program right now, which is how coaches get uncomfortable. So,
and because of that dynamic, your rival may be playing for a national title as well.
Yeah, and might win the national championship. I don't know if they'll win it, but they'll be.
It's kind of it is a nightmare scenario for Ohio State.
But there also is the small glimmer of hope that Ohio State could play Michigan in the national championship game, which I think would break televisions.
Oh yeah, it would. The ratings would be incredible for that game. But think about this. If you're Ryan Day, you could either be on Sunday one of the most hated people in Ohio, and everybody's mad at you, and everybody's going to be mad at you for a long, long time, or you could have beaten Georgia, and now you have the opportunity to avenge a Michigan loss and win the national title.
If Ohio State beats Georgia, and if you heard anything I just said for the past 5 minutes, it's a huge if.
I heard you.
They're going to win the national title.
They're going to
regardless of who they play. Yeah.
Okay.
Because that would be a team that figured it out, and Michigan doesn't want to play Ohio State if they figure it out.